Hey, Green Machine friends and fans of fun, we have sad news this week. Terrible sad news. One of our boxes is late. It won't be here until tomorrow, and we don't know when we're going to be able to process it and get it out, hopefully. Hopefully we will have all the comics on the shelf tomorrow. Most likely late tomorrow, maybe early Thursday. That's probably about the best we can do for the comics for this week. But we do have a bunch of stuff to review. We also want to say I had a weird week that sort of put things in perspective. And we really, really appreciate our regulars. Like, you wouldn't believe. Like, you guys get us through so much. And I'm sure thankful for all of your patience. And that goes, too, for all of our YouTube subscribers. So thank you guys for making all of this stuff possible. So we're going to get into the books this week. And unfortunately, since we only had half our shipment show up today, we've got a very light week. Because we're trying a new format. We're going to try less books. It just didn't show up. So yeah, why don't we get it started with Critical Role Vox Machina Origins. Now, if you don't know Critical Role is an amazing Dungeons and Dragons RPG. I don't know, what would you call them? Troop party. It's on Geek and Sundry, and I'm kind of addicted to a lot of these shows. I'm addicted to the Vampire the Masquerade, LA by Night type stuff. But this one is them writing, and the head of it is the DM, Matthew Mercer. But it's all of them writing their own fantasy story, and it's amazing. So the last one, one of the main characters was trying to track down his dad, which came to him in a dream, and it turned out his dad was being controlled by a lich who then infected him. And that's pretty much where it's picking up from there. So this one, they take a job to sneak into a wizard's tower to try and get the wizard's attention and steal from him to help their friend. That doesn't seem wise. So, yeah, does it work out? You'll have to read to find out. But it's a good read. The art is amazing. The story, I mean, honestly, this is the best fantasy comic that we have on our shelf right now. And it makes sense because it flies off the shelf. Y'all get it, like, real quick. I don't know how many copies we have of this one. I hope we have enough. But Critical Role issue number 3, it's not too late to jump into this. It's so good.
I gotta interject there, man. So, if that's good, is there a blood god?
There's no blood god in that. Not yet. Not yet. There's no blood god. I don't know. They're not taking a page out of every Conan comic that is on the shelf. But next is, I talked up fantasy quite a bit there. So what about a little fantasy mixed with sci-fi mixed with cartoons? And that's Rick and Morty D&D. And if you don't remember, we reviewed the original Rick and Morty Dungeons & Dragons and loved it. It was amazing. It was honestly... My God, I didn't know I wanted that mashup in my life, and it was so good. This one pretty much picks up where the last one left off, I guess I should say. That's probably better grammar. So the family is watching Dungeons & Dragons TV and ordering from the Dungeons & Dragons shopping network, and the whole world is filled with Dungeons & Dragons fandom, and while Rick likes this, he knows something is wrong. So it turns out everyone is infected with the D&D virus, and they go off to figure out what caused that. So it's a great premise. It's honestly a good excuse for adventure. It's got the typical Rick and Morty humor. More importantly, it's better than the regular Rick and Morty comic on the shelf right now, which is weird to say, but it works. And I really, really hope that when the new season comes that we get a D&D episode, at least an episode. I would love it if we got a whole season of that stuff, because it was so good. So this is Rick and Morty Dungeons & Dragons Chapter 2, The Painscape, and this is by Zub, Little Ito, and Crank, and it's great. It's so good. Go pick this up. Next is, it's Savage Sword of Conan. Guess what? What do you think he's dealing with?
Blood god.
Nope.
Whoa.
Right? Whoa.
Because wizard.
Apparently these 3 issues. Yeah. Okay. Apparently these 3 issues. He could be dealing with the blood god still. These 3 issues center around Conan the Gambler. Apparently Conan has taken a bad bet. And now he's in a pit with people watching from above as he fights a giant monster. It's the Rancor scene. This is the Rancor scene. So, yay! If you like Star Wars, you'll probably really like this. And all this is happening because he's sort of befriended the goddess of luck. There you go. And can luck be a blood god? Maybe.
Can luck be a lady?
Luck is a lady in this, and she could be a blood goddess. I don't know. Luck goes both ways. But was it good? Yeah, it was great. Honestly, this was probably the best Savage Sword of Conan comic I've read so far. And I don't know. Maybe it's because it wasn't centering around a blood god. Maybe that's it. And I have a thing for Star Wars, and it was very Rancor-esque, I guess you could say. But the art was good. You know. I still think Savage Sword of Conan, as far as the art is concerned, it's sort of on the fence for me. It's probably the weakest of all of them. As far as story is concerned, it's, again, probably the weakest of all of them. But I did have a good time with this book, so I think issue 9 is a perfect jumping off point if you want to get into some Savage Sword. Come pick that up. Oh, and that is by Jim Zub. Hey, it's Zub again. He's writing all the fantasy titles. Jim Zub, Patch Zerker, Java Tartaglia. Man, I might have actually pronounced that right. All right. And that's issue 9, Savage Sword of Conan. Next is a book that totally caught me by surprise, and that's issue 9 of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, who the cover is drawn by Kevin Eastman.
Yeah, she just turned 60 today.
She turned 60.
Yeah.
Elvira turned 60. Good on her. I will never look as good as she does at 60. But as far as this comic is concerned, I had a really good time with this. Oddly enough, it felt very Deadpool-esque. They referenced that it feels Deadpool-esque, and at times call it like a blatant ripoff. But it feels very Elvira, more like the old Elvira movie, not the TV show where she's reviewing the scary movies, but the actual one where she was like running around doing like hijinks and stuff like that. That's the vibe I got from this. Which, you know, I've read other Elvira comics and I've been like, it's so. This was actually a really good showing. So this is David Avallone and Dave Acosta, and obviously the art, the cover is by Kevin Eastman. This is a really, really good comic. Had a great time with it. More importantly, it's prepping her to go up against some witches because she gets hijacked by a broom. So you know that it's leading to that. And I think it coins the phrase "witches get stitches." Okay. So, anyways, I did have a totally good time with this book. Come pick it up if you like Elvira. Or more importantly, it's edging up on October, so if you need some holiday reads, this one you really can't go wrong with. Next is Star Wars Age of Resistance Gray. Totally looks like it says Gray. Pick a different font, guys. Criticism of the font aside, had a great time with this story. Okay, it centers around Rey, and it takes place immediately after Rey sees Solo get killed, and immediately before she goes to find Skywalker. So you know right where this is in the storyline. And she's cruising around with, you know, R2-D2 and Chewbacca, and it was honestly fun. Like, it was a great adventure. She busts out the lightsaber. It fleshed out a bit more of her character. I got a little more backstory on Rey, which I didn't know I really, really wanted, but it made me like the character even more. I had a really good time with this book. It was a great showing. It's a fun Star Wars comic, and it didn't feel limited. Like, even though it was a tiny blip in time, it didn't feel like they were just sticking sort of to that. They were let loose a bit, I guess you could say. So as far as the Star Wars Age of Resistance books, I think this one and maybe the Boba Fett one were my favorites. So yeah, go pick this one up. It's a really good read. Next is well, I don't know. How should I preface this? Did you drive your Chevy to the levee and find the levee was dry? With them good old boys drinking whiskey and rye?
Are you trying to tell me the music is going to die?
Maybe. I don't know. This is Archie 55, which seems to be Archie as the big bopper. It sort of opens with people saying that Archie is going missing. And then it starts detailing his background. And his background is like, man, I gotta rock. And people are like, no, turn off that devil music. And he's like, but I gotta rock. And then D. Snyder kicks in the... No, that doesn't happen. Was it a good read? Actually, it was a pretty good read. I really, really don't care for any rock stories before the 60s. In my opinion, like, I don't know. Until the 60s rock really didn't happen. It doesn't. I don't identify with surfer rock or any of that other stuff or big bopper stuff, but did have a pretty good time with this. I didn't hate it. The art was really good. The story was fun, if not a little tropey. It's very clearly that Archie is sort of the James Dean character of this story, or the Big Bopper character. I don't know who he'd be considered, but that's what they're going for, is that sort of old motif. And it works. It works for this book. It's not as strong as the Archie 45, I think. The Archie 45 was a little creepy because they were edging up on World War II.
Yeah.
Or they were after World War II is what I mean to say.
Well, and Archie was in World War II.
In World War II, yeah. So it was, meh. Yeah, this was pretty good. Do I think this is a stronger title than the Archie and Sabrina, the mainline Archie that's on the shelf right now? No. I still think that if you want your Archie soap opera, go get that. But Archie 55 was still a pretty good showing. And you can tell from the cover that the art is really good. They did a good job with this. So this is Wade. Oh, it's Mark Waid. No wonder. No wonder it's good. It's Mark Waid. You throw Mark Waid at mostly anything, but mostly Archie, and he does a great job. So it's Wade, Augustine, Grummett, Smith, Whitmore, and Morelli. My God, there's a lot of people on this book. And yeah, it was pretty good. So go check that out. Next is, well, I don't know. We're just getting weird with it. If you don't know, Tony Stark Iron Man is coming to its end. It's going to end in a couple more issues. Why? I don't know. Slott's kind of working on Fantastic Four these days, and the comic, it's not really selling. The art is great. The art is honestly really good. But for whatever reason, the comic's not selling. Maybe when he died in the movies, the casual fans just assumed he's dead overall. I don't know what the reason is. I can't call it. However, Tony Stark Iron Man, the Ultron Agenda, I wanted to like this book. It's sort of dealing with Jacinta being mashed up with, I can't remember who she's mashed up with. Meanwhile, Ultron shows up mashed up with Hank Pym. Yeah. And by mashed up, I don't mean we've sort of crossed them over in the amalgamation sense where you've got Batman and Wolverine and they made Dark Claw. If you don't know the amalgamations, that was with the 90s where DC and Marvel crossed over. It was weird. Most of us pretend it didn't happen. So one of the things about this is it's not like that. It's like they've been squished together. You can tell from the cover. That's Hank Pym and Ultron. And it says the Ultron Agenda. Well, the Ultron Agenda is apparently making Borg creatures, is what it feels like. Does that feel really fitting for Ultron? Not really. It doesn't feel so mastermindy so much as crazy mad scientist-y. And maybe that's because he's got half of Hank Pym's face on his face. I don't know. I didn't like it. It wasn't a great read.
He jumped into Hank Pym's body last week.
Yeah. The weird thing about this Iron Man run is while, like, these people do such good stuff on other books, this run has just felt like a mishmash of stuff. Like they did do you remember the virtual reality stuff where he was stuck in virtual reality?
10 issues.
And then they did like the old school Iron Man with roller skates in it, which it was cool to see, but it felt like that whole arc was building to that one scene, which didn't quite make sense. And it was just a mesh of stuff. And this is the same thing. It's like they're throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And I don't like it. But I don't know. This is Slot Zub. Oh, it's Zub again. Shitty. That's his name. I'm sorry. SCHITI.
It's Shitai.
Shitai. Maybe it's French. Skitty. I don't know. I might have just cursed on this. I'm sorry. And Delgado. The art is great. I want to like this more. I feel like we should go out and buy Iron Man and support him because, he's going to get shelved for probably a whole 3 months and then come back, but he's going to get shelved soon. So we should show our support. But, I don't know. Not the best. It's the beginning of an event. If that sounds exciting to you, the event's probably about 3 books, but it's the beginning.
Well, here's another thing, too. They were talking about the MCU bringing Ultron back, so this might be something we see.
Maybe. I hope he doesn't come back like this.
Yeah.
Our next book is Test. Now, Test is a really, really interesting story. I have to think about this. So we got the first book, and then for whatever reason, 2 and 3 never came, but we got the fourth book. Maybe that was that credit that Diamond gave us. They were like skipping us on test. So there is a giant hole in this story for me. Now, was I totally confused? No, not really. The first book, the premise was that we had a person who was part android and was super high tech, and they were going to investigate a town that appeared overnight that was from the future and very super high tech. And they basically had to get to the bottom of it. And, well, the story picks up from there. Apparently the town has been investigated and burnt down more times than not by the government. And the story itself is sort of talking about the trappings of lives and how we sort of get stuck in patterns, even when the pattern is not our own. That's pretty deep. And the main story premise behind this story is that, well, the city from the future is sentient and is in love with the android character. That's weird. But there's a lot of depth to this story. I hadn't read the second and third. I don't have the premise for them. That said, I can see where the writer was going with this, and I wanted to know more. Reading this made me want to know what I missed in those other 2 issues, which says a lot for the writing. So this is Sabella. Oh, Hickman's in this.
Okay.
Sabella, Hickman, Saxon, and Otis Main Elahu. I hope I pronounced your name right. And this is Test. This is a rather deep novel. The art, I'm a little on the fence at times. It's a little too gritty, and at times feels too pencily, not enough ink in my opinion, but that's just because I'm an ink snob. But it's a really good read for $3.99. I think you should go pick this up. But you should, I think you could pick it up and not be confused, but you're going to want to get the other 3 issues when you read this because it's that good. So I had a pretty good time with it. So Tess, go check that out. Next is The Magnificent Miss Marvel. And of course, this is Saladin Ahmed, Joey Vasquez, and Ian Herring. And this takes place after, well, Miss Marvel got a suit upgrade via old Tony Stark. And it's an amazing high-tech suit. I like the effects. I like the look of it. I like when she suits up, how quick she suits up. But more importantly, well, one of her villains that has some tech appears in this, and there's another character that she knows that is a new villain that also appears in this with more high tech. So it seems like Miss Marvel is going the way of tech these days. A little more tech. Not so much just big hands and big feet type stuff. And I like that. It seems to fit her character. It's nice to see her character change like this. And meanwhile, she's still dealing with the fact that, well, somebody in her family is about to die. She's still dealing with, the typical tropes, I guess comic tropes of superheroes and secret identities and how you circumnavigate that stuff. And that's always stuff that we see, but she's going in new ways with both her character arc and with the story. They're getting a little deep with it at times. It's good to see. So issue number 7, Magnificent Miss Marvel. This is still a really good read. Go pick it up. Next is, God. God, I need to take a deep breath because, again, everything Tom King touches just sinks to me. And I know some people don't like him. I've heard it before. I love everything he writes. It reads like poetry, and, the Nightmare stuff really read like poetry. But this stuff where he's prepping to fight Bane and sort of rekindling his love with Catwoman, I love so much. His dialogue is amazing because the dialogue, the exchanges they have between each other are never what they're saying. It's perfect writing in a lot of ways. It really fits the scenes. At times it feels like romance, other times it feels like noir, other times it goes right back to its superhero roots, and I love it. I love everything about it. More importantly, there's a couple one-liners referencing Kite Man, and I don't know. I like the way they delivered them. The art is amazing. I sounded like Comics Explained right there. The art is amazing. I love the way Rob talks. The art is amazing. More importantly, and I'm a little nervous to say this, at one point they show Batman standing in front of a sunset, and that sunset looks like the symbol for Omega. Now, is it a Darkseid reference? Probably not. Probably not referencing Darkseid. Is it a death reference? Maybe. So, brace yourself. I think they are foreshadowing something with that. I can't spoil much else. I will say that as a Batman fan, you need to read this. Does a lot change from the last issue? Not too much. I do like this issue better than the last issue, but they're still prepping for the big fight. I think the big fight comes next time. But, don't hold your breath because King is the master of drawing stuff out. So, yeah. City of Bane, Batman, that's issue 79. Go pick it up. It's great. Next is an amazing book, but, oh, Diamond, what did you do to this copy? Wow. It doesn't even look like you tried here. like, it came bent up. Like, it looks like it got munched in the printer, and then, even though it was munched in the printer and didn't trim right, they just threw it in the box. I don't know what happened.
Quality control, man.
Yeah, quality control. But this is House of X. The rest of our issues of House of X are all in order, and they will be on the shelf tomorrow. I'm happy to say we've got that, so you don't have to be disappointed, Mutants fans. What can I say about this except I'm still really hooked and really riveted to this line. As someone who's never been into mutants, I love this. So last issue, what happened? Everything fell apart, and we watched the X-Men team die. And more importantly, what that issue proved, though, was that Charles Xavier, Professor X, is a lot more callous than he's ever been. Because it used to be, when someone's life was on the line, Professor X would say, just get out of there. Just get out of there. And then somebody would risk their life too much and get killed. In this instance, Professor X was like, this must be done. Do it now. So what Hickman is saying essentially is that we are dealing with a Professor X that we have never seen before. And we do not know how this is going to play out. And it's beautiful. It's perfect. So this one centers around Krakoa, the mutants attempting to get their freedom from the United Nations. I won't spoil that for you. But more importantly, it centers around something I didn't expect. The mutants we saw die. You're going to have to read this issue. You're going to have to read this issue. Maybe mutants have cracked something a little bit more. And the way they do it, the way they do what they've done makes sense. And it's built right. And it's very comic book-esque. But then we're seeing mutants do traditions, stuff I haven't seen so much, but that very much feels like they're a tribe. And like one of them gets up and speaks, and then the others will echo that sentiment and repeat stuff back. And while it feels that way, it also feels a bit creepy. The undertones are that, well, maybe this could get out of hand anytime soon. And so I love this writing. It's great. It's frightening, but it's good. And so that's House of X issue number 5. Come pick every one of our issues up except for this one, because this one sucks. I am sorry. Like, the printer did not do their job at all. Or the machine messed it up. I don't know what happened. Don't pick up this issue, but pick up this issue. I don't know which book to end this with. I'm going to end this. I'm going to go with this one first. This is Spider-Man issue number 1, and this is J.J. Abrams, Henry Abrams, and Sarah Pichelli. Now, here's the problem with talking about number 1s is I can't conceivably talk about this book without spoiling this book. So, Yogi, we're going to put a spoiler warning in this, right? And you're going to need to go ahead. I don't know how many minutes, but if you don't want this to be spoiled, you're going to have to skip this.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Now, what does this center around? What do you think this centers around? Look at the cover, Yogi.
Blood God.
What? Blood God.
Mary Jane.
It is pretty red. So it looks like it centers around Mary Jane and Spider-Man. And while, yes, it does open with them, this book does not center around them. Actually, Spider-Man, he loses a hand. And in that fight, Mary Jane gets killed. Yeah. It's very shocking, very sudden. But there's a son involved. Good old Ben Parker. That's a good name for Pete's son. And I think we've seen Ben Parker in a few other instances. I seem to remember. But at any rate, other than Uncle Ben, I mean. But at any rate, so this story centers around Spider-Man's son and kind of how he gets his powers, how old Peter Parker copes with the traumas of that day. Aunt May is still around in this story, which is kind of cool to see. So it makes sense now. Now I get what they were going for by J.J. Abrams and Henry Abrams writing it. Because everyone was like, why is Henry Abrams on this book when he has like no writing experience whatsoever? Why does he get Spider-Man? Which, granted, as a writer, that hurts me because I would hunger for any comic book character. I would love to write a comic book character. And Henry Abrams with no bibliography somehow gets Spider-Man, which that bothers me. Okay, it's my bias, but that's fine. But I see what they're doing. It's a father and son telling a tale of a father and son. And I want to know where they're going with it. I thought it was quite beautiful. It was well written. The art was great. It was kind of a cool story. It's a new take on the Spider-Man mythos, or I don't know if it's a new take, because I kind of have recollections of stuff like this before, but it's a sort of different take on the Spider-Man mythos, I guess you could say. Yeah, I don't know. It's different. It's different from anything on our shelf right now, and I like it. So, J.J. Abrams, Henry Abrams, and Sarah Pichelli, Spider-Man issue number 1. Go pick this up. It was great. I had a good time with it. Our last book, and this is Donny Cates, Ryan Stegman, J.P. Meyer, and Frank Martin, and that is Absolute Carnage. So, we need to talk about stuff, because in the last issue, Old Sleeper appeared. Now, if you don't remember Sleeper, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. Not a lot of people picked up Final Host. Sleeper was a symbiote offspring of Venom, the last one of his, that disappeared. But more importantly, he's a very powerful symbiote that can control, what is it? What is that smelling? Pheromones?
Yeah.
He can control pheromones. He can control chemicals, both in his blood and in chemicals that other people are exposed to. He also lobotomized his host and basically took a host and just used him to walk around and controlled him. And it was kind of wild. So he's a super OP symbiote, but he came to help Dylan, and he came to back his play. And then in the last issue, we something was hinted that Dylan possesses something. Like, Carnage went for him, and then Dylan's eyes changed, but Dylan has never talked to a symbiote. So I'm kind of wondering if there isn't an anti-venom in Dylan that he doesn't know about.
He was the spawn of
Who had venom, so I don't know. And they said, like, when the Maker, because the Maker had symbiotes in him, and the Maker went for him, and he said, like, you don't even know it's in you. And then his eyes, like, flashed, and he's like, there it is. Like, so I really wonder. But Sleeper is in play. We get to see Sleeper, being Sleeper. I like that character. We only saw him in First Host, and I wanted to see so much more of that character. And now we get to see him doing some crazy stuff. More importantly, they're sort of coping with the fact that Miles has lost the fight, and Miles is now on Team Carnage, and he's pretty messed up. We see that in here. And then, Carnage is such a tricky character. The way he pulls stuff around and the way he twists and messes like stuff up, it's pretty chaotic, and we get to see that. So is this a good read? It's an amazing read. It's difficult to talk about without spoiling more. I think last issue too we had so we had Cap show up, we had Wolverine show up, we had Ben Grimm show up, the Fantastic Four, and I don't know if I want to say tortured or just happy that the trend continues, but Ben Grimm's probably only line in this book is one where he says, Yancey Street. They gotta stop with that crap. I don't know. They're going too far with it. Going way too far with it. But I did love this book. It was a great book. It's not too often that I read a book that I'm not subscribed to, and I'm like, I kind of need to pick that up, and this was one of them. This was a really, really great read. A lot of cool stuff in it. Go check it out. Absolute Carnage issue number 3. It's not too late to jump in on this. Trust me. Go get it. That's our show for the week. We're going to do the drawing real fast and see who's won. All right. I'm going to dig deep this time. $2.95.
All right, let's see here. Oh, Jesus. $2.95. That's going to be Ray Lopez.
Okay, Ray Lopez. Next is $3.42.
Lorenzo Silva.
So Ray Lopez, Lorenzo Silva, you've won a poster. And the last is $1.60. Whoa, somebody who's suspended. Last is $2.37.
Jay Dixon.
Jay Dixon, you won a poster. I don't recognize that name.
Let's grab one more. I don't think he's an active account.
We don't think he's an active account, so we'll get one last one. $2.15.
Okay, that is going to be Sean Pinson.
Sean Pinson. Well, you guys have won posters, so come through and pick them up. And that's our show for the week. Hopefully we get the rest of our books in. I'm sorry it was a short one and we didn't get to review more of the lot. But we'll have a lot of books here maybe Thursday, most likely, maybe tomorrow night.
The guys will make a strong push.
Yeah.
We'll get those comics
We'll
out tomorrow.
try and get them out as soon as possible. So, yeah, that's it.